I think with the boats and immigration is clearly there's been a bit of a shift to the right on those issues. Labour are talking tough about it. They recognise how unpopular it is, but in terms of like, it seems like they're not appealing to anybody on it. They're alienating their own supporters on the left who want a compassionate approach to immigration, and they're not in any way appeasing the folk on the right who want a clampdown. So it's like I think they're kind of losing votes from both sides on immigration.
Do you think so? I think some of their measures have been pretty good. I think they're, like you say, they maybe are losing some of the sort of student common room vote, but they were probably going to go to the Greens anyway. I think.
I mean, the Greens are currently pulling about 15%.
And you're never going to appease the real hardliners on immigration. I think the average person in Britain, in Scotland, kind of likes the approach Labour are taking. I think they're starting to make up ground on immigration. I mean, we're in a terrible situation where, we saw yesterday there was a man sentenced for another horrendous crime down in London who, was a Romanian immigrant. The very fact that the focus is on crimes and horrendous crimes committed by immigrants is just keeping this pressure on. And, we need to start taking a much more a tougher approach. And I like to see that Labour are doing that. I'm also going to pick you up, John. I agree with much of what you said. I mean, I think for one thing, I don't think we can let it pass that you said there's a genocide being committed. That isn't the case. Some people believe there's a genocide being committed. That is proved by nobody. And I genuinely don't think that Labour's position on Gaza is alienating voters. It's maybe alienating, again, a certain far left subset of voters, but the average person isn't voting about Gaza. That's nonsense.
What I actually said was there is a perception.
You said there's a genocide. You said
in a genocide.
You didn't. I think we can wind that back. There isn't a genocide in Gaza. So let's just stop there.
See, on the it is having an impact literally on Labour in the sense that you look at the last general election, although they won a landslide, you had all those independent candidates win. West Streeting nearly lost his seat as well. I mean, you can see it being a big issue at the next election as well.
Well, the Middle East.
Yeah,
seriously,
well, I mean,
the Middle East. When's that ever been a big issue at a Westminster election?
In terms of what I say about the independents, the pro-Gaza independents.
Tony Blair resigned. Tony Blair survived and resigned. His reputation is destroyed
by the Iraq War. People felt that they'd been complicit.
But he still won election after election.
Killing of hundreds of thousands of innocent people, and they didn't like it.
But he won election.
That's surprising.
He won election after election. He stood down and let Gordon Brown have a go.
I'm not saying it's going to be a dominant issue, but in particular seats, it's going to be a problem for Labour, as was seen in the 2024 election. I mean, West Street nearly lost a seat. You're going to have all these.
You've got four MPs who are single issue candidates who that's unprecedented.
In a tight election, with
four MP, I think it's a fringe issue. I really do.
Just to go back to what you're saying, Ruth, about the winter fuel payment. I mean, like making a first impression, a positive first impression in politics is really important. And although they did that, I think in 2024, do you not just feel like, even though that was quite a long time ago, they're still paying a price for that? People, if you were to ask the average voter, name you one policy that you associate with the Labour government, they're probably going to say taking winter fuel payments away from folk on 12 grand a year.
Well, that's it. So quite a lot of the pensioners, some of them don't need it. It is means tested now. So unfortunately, despite it being means tested, you'll have to apply for it. There will be a lot of people that fall through the cracks. And from the people that I've spoke to, I know it's devolved, but from the people that I spoke to in Scotland at the time, some of them, they wait for that money to come through for Christmas presents because they can't afford to buy their family Christmas presents. I mean, obviously their fuel bills, food, a lot of them, and without it, they're being forced to go to food banks and churches for help.
Now, my old boy doesn't need it. I remember when they announced that policy last year, he says, in terms of the actual policy, it doesn't bother me because of what I get in terms of a pension. But he'd already budgeted for it on a spreadsheet, and there's just this feeling that Labour had taken the rug away from people, and uh, you know we've moved on from it, I think, but for pensioners, they haven't moved on. And you mentioned the welfare cuts as well. I mean, that was a complete debacle. If you look at the original set of proposals, what they were wanting to do, I mean, no one elected a Labour government to take money away from the sick and the disabled. And I think it was a good moment for, if you support progressive Labour government, that they abandoned those proposals. They've gone back to the drawing board. I think Pat McFadden's going to bring back a revised set of proposals to get people off welfare into work. But as you say, people don't vote Labour in order to target vulnerable people.
I can't help feeling. I mean, we were supposed to be discussing Holyrood. We should rename this planet Westminster, because it's the SNP.
We're going to come on to the SNP, but you can't deny that what happens at Westminster has a massive bearing, because
it does, but then that's maybe because we're forever banging on about it, and all the commentators are linking the two. The SNP are responsible for most of these policies.
We're about to come on to them, but you look at where the opinion polls are just now. That's largely because of the performance of the Labour government. Voters don't make a distinction between UK Labour and Scottish Labour. So when UK Labour are doing well, Scottish Labour do
I think they do.
Well as well.
I think you do Scottish voters a disservice. I think they are the most sophisticated voters in the UK. And I think when it comes to next year, I think we'll see that. I think
Hold on a second. Right. So you hate the SNP, or you dislike them. They've won the last 4 elections. How does that tally with Scottish voters being most sophisticated in the UK?
I'm not saying I agree with their electoral choices, but I'm saying they get the
fact. They make a sophisticated choice to put the SNP.
No, they get that Westminster votes are different to Holyrood votes, are different to council votes. I don't think voters are going to vote entirely on Keir Starmer's woeful record. I just don't think
entirely, but I mean, it's going to be part of it.
It does seem that Scottish Labour's fortunes are inextricably tied to Westminster Labour's fortunes. That, I mean, you might not like that, but it does. There is the link is
the link's huge. There. Yeah, I'm not saying every voter's, but I do think there's a majority of voters will realise that this election is about schools, it's about hospitals, it's about crime, it's about courts, it's about police stations, it's about the day-to-day running of public services in Scotland.